yum, yum, yum.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Sack City Podcast. I am your host, the one and only Vinny Milani, joined as always by my best friend in the whole entire world, Aaron the Mukesiah Mukes. And below us, we have ya boy, the reigning, the defending, the undisputed, somewhat heavyweight valedictorian of the show, AJ Johnson.
What
It
it
is a
do?
beautiful June 15th evening here in the city. Episode 42 is about to kick off. We are breaking down the best ADP value picks on Monday's show. We broke down the worst ADP value pick or worst ADP picks. Tonight, we give you those value picks and help you guys win those fantasy championships. Want to shout out everybody in the chat, everyone watching at home. Please interact with us. Let us know what you think of the show. Comment along as the show goes by. Aaron's clapping back tonight. Again, we're going over the ADP values. We've got a little trade talk to kick off the show. So, AJ, this may come as a surprise to you, but lately, normally we have Aaron do all of our social media responses, like for under the Sack City name on YouTube. Like if someone comments, he's normally the one who responds back. And we had a comment from a gentleman by the name of Not Tom. Shout out Not Tom if you're watching this. He brought up a trade, a dynasty trade involving Travis Kelce on our video on whether or not you should get rid of Travis Kelce now or ride with him all the way until he breaks down. His trade looked like this: George Kittle, Kadarius Toney, and a second-round pick for Travis Kelce in a dynasty league. And the reason why we're bringing this up here is because you and I were talking about it, and you said one thing and I said another, and we couldn't agree. So we're taking it to the show right now. We're breaking this trade down and seeing, and AJ is going to really be the deciding factor here. Really, I'm just going straight up with AJ here first because I know your thoughts. You know my thoughts. Neither of us know AJ's thoughts. So, AJ, what do you think of this trade? Dynasty. Uh-oh, that's a big time minus. It's a big minus. Early on in the show.
Throw it to him and then he's on mute.
Funny enough, it's actually not a minus because for me, what I was doing there was they were coming home, the engines were loud outside, and she always takes her time to hit the alarm. So I wanted to miss, and then you asked the question, I was like, damn. It sucks. I can never time it right. And lo and behold, I was muted. You couldn't hear the horn. I'm a genius. Now, to completely contradict that whole genius theory, I personally, I like what they have to offer. But for me, believe it or not, the George Kittle is the deal breaker for me, and I don't want to do it. I'd rather ride with Travis Kelce. I have not been able to see a season that I can trust George Kittle to stay healthy and play the amount of games that we need, or to play the big time games that you need. Now, funny enough, Kadarius Toney, I really like him going forward. I think that's a great piece to throw in to bring up to use going forward. And a second round pick, and it's nice, but like I'm riding with Travis Kelce. I mean, he's been the number one tight end year after year after year, and honestly, until he decides to just lay down at the center of Arrowhead Stadium and call it quits, I'm good with that.
See, Aaron, you are obviously not on this same side. I'm agreeing with AJ here of riding the ship with Travis Kelce because I don't – obviously the injuries of George Kittle, and you can say that they're overrated or whatever, and he's played a lot. I just don't – you look at it one for one, George Kittle or Travis Kelce, I don't think that's that close. I don't think it's that close. And then I have a lot of uncertainty with – Kadarius Toney. I don't know. Like AJ said, there's hope for him, but in the future, I don't know if he's going to have Daniel Jones right now, but who's his quarterback in the future? Is he a New York Giant in the future? Have we even seen from Kadarius Toney his true potential yet? Do we know he can be a star? Do we know that he is worth giving up the best tight end in football for? Then you have a second round pick, and that's a good pick in dynasty. A second round pick is huge, but to me, I'm riding with the ship, like AJ said, of Travis Kelce rather than giving up the best tight end in football for George Kittle, who's very good, and Kadarius Toney in a second-round pick. That's just my thoughts.
No, I want to see you guys. We don't need to solo this. I want to bring everybody in here because Not Tom is in the chat, actually, and I'm thankful that he's here. We get to discuss the trade that he brought up. We're talking about that trade right now, Not Tom. Listen, this is not easy. By no means is this easy. Am I saying, hey, if you take Travis Kelce, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing? But this is where people get into trouble in Dynasty. I mentioned the other day, and I was the advocate of don't get rid of Travis Kelce. He's fine. He's 32. George Kittle's 28. George Kittle's 4 years younger. And AJ, we talked about this earlier, and you and your numbers, man. This not trusting George Kittle thing, this talk is it's such a misnomer. He's played 5 seasons in the NFL. Last year, he played 14 games. 2020, which is with the big season, he played 8. Before that, 14 games, 16 games, 15 games. This is not a guy that's out there missing half of the season. He did it once. Not to mention, he's been the top 5 in tight ends at the position 3 out of the 5 years, obviously discounting his rookie year and then discounting the year he only played 8 games. He finished 2, he finished 3, and he finished 4 in PPR rankings those seasons at the position. He averages 2 less points than Travis Kelce on a per-game basis last season. That's with, sometimes where he had to go out and miss games in the middle, or not miss games, but miss time in the middle of the games. This is a guy who is highly productive day in and day out. And it's not even about comparing him to Travis Kelce. It's the return you're getting. You're getting younger, 4 years. The drop off, to Vinny's point, is not actually that much. You get the upside of a Kadarius Toney, who had a rookie season where we saw flashes. But yes, you're probably banking on some upside there. And then we're talking about the second round pick, which is for me what puts it over the top. If you're in a dynasty league, your second round picks this year probably consisted along the lines of a James Cook, a Jahan Dotson, a Rashad White, a Dameon Pierce, a David Bell. Guys like that in the second round, you paired one of those guys up with Kadarius Toney, and I'm still getting an elite talent plus an elite producer at the tight end position. It's not that hard for me. It's actually pretty easy.
How many more years do you think Travis Kelce has of this?
If I'm being nice. If I'm being nice and saying, hey, not trying to throw him 3 to 4, and that's being nice. I think you get to 35, 36 years old, your body just at that position can't take it anymore. Yeah. And we're talking about a guy who is going to be the number 1 option on his team. So highly productive for 3 or 4 years. George Kittle, highly productive, can give me 3 or even if he only gave me 3 or 4 seasons, that drop off to gain that upside is worth it for me. And again, it still goes back down to roster construction. What do you have elsewhere? But when you compare Kelce and Kittle, it's not that big of a difference. The big difference is one has Patrick Mahomes, and we know is going to get him the football, and the other doesn't.
That's where I was going to go next.
Without a quarterback,
but it's not necessarily him being productive without a quarterback. Is who are those quarterbacks that you're considering him being productive with that are bad quarterbacks?
Not bad. I mean, he was productive with CJ Beathard or Beathard. Nick, I know how to say it. I was just Nick Mullins, Beathard. Nick Mullins, Jimmy Garoppolo, like guys like that. And now we bring in Trey Lance, who again is unproven, but we assume is supposed to be an elite quarterback.
Hold on.
We talk about the unprovenness though, but all 3 of those, and that's not even where I'm going with this. The unproven fact. It's the fact that you brought up Jimmy G, CJ Beathard, Nick Mullins. None of those quarterbacks are as athletic as Trey Lance. So does that play into a fact here?
No, that's a benefit to George Kittle.
Yeah. So my thought process on it, and firstly, brings me no joy to say, Aaron, you made very, very solid and valid points and a sensible argument that I can get behind. The Patrick Mahomes to Travis Kelce thing, because George Kittle is getting Trey Lance to me, is actually a better thing for him. Because if you go back and you watch Trey Lance's tape from North Dakota State, he loved his tight ends. That was one of the things coming into the season that I actually said was going to be a very big upgrade for George Kittle, because the connection that he likes to find with his tight ends is it pops off the tape. So I do like the thought process of Trey Lance coming in for George Kittle. Kadarius Toney was a guy that I was, spoiler alert, was going to talk about tonight. I went a different route because I do think his potential is going to get there with or without Daniel Jones. I think we'll see a lot of that this season, and I think he'll start to take over that number 1 spot in New York. So on the surface, when you first look at it, I guess it's easier to see Travis Kelce's name and go with what you know and go with the safety. The fact that Tyreek Hill's not there, do you know what it's going to be like with Juju or MVS or, WNBA Sky Moore, Justin Ross? I mean, there's a lot of weapons on that team, to be honest. So, there are a couple more question marks, but we just know that Travis Kelce is Pat Mahomes' guy. And what he's shown us year in and year out makes it a little easier to, on the surface, look at Travis Kelce and be like, that's where I'm going. But Aaron, honestly, you brought up a lot of good points of what you're getting back with George Kittle, Kadarius Toney, and a second-round pick in a dynasty league.
The other part about this that I find funny that you guys are going to laugh at is not Tom. We don't know who Not Tom is. We appreciate you supporting the show and being a follower of the show, joining us in the chat, and everybody in the chat really. But you know me, I don't know Tom. I don't know if he's as emotional as I am. But you know
No
me
one's as
in the
emotional
big
as you.
names. Part of people's problem in fantasy football is being attached to those big names. Like for me, it might sound extremely stupid, but it would be so hard for me to see me accept a trade that includes the name of Travis Kelce. But at the end of the day, why? No, pick it up. Pick up your face.
You know how silly you sound because
pick up your face.
No, the reason you sound silly is because you just disregarded the fact that George Kittle is a big name. So what are you talking about?
George Kittle is a big name, but he's not Travis Kelce. Okay,
it's arguable that George Kittle is the best tight end in football.
That is not true. If we're
going
to
argue that fact right now,
if you're going to get into
Kittle's
this argument, then I will bring up the real fact here and the real stats here that AJ, you were talking about inconsistencies in his game. There is inconsistencies in his fantasy production compared to Travis Kelce. Last season, 75% of his games were great or quality starts of 6.5 points or more. George Kittle, 57%. That's a big drop-off. That's a big difference. But then you go into those great games, those week-winning games where he's scoring 11 points or more. Travis Kelce, 44%. George Kittle, 29%. You are getting a wide receiver one in Travis Kelce. You are not getting a wide receiver one in George Kittle.
Nobody's saying that. Look, I cannot do this with you guys. I listened to you guys on Monday and watch you bring up 75% quality starts, 60 over and over and over again. You guys did it with DK Metcalf. You did it with Terry McLaurin. You did it with all these players.
That matters.
At the end of the day, in fantasy, at the end of the day, when you look down somebody's game log, there is not a player in football that doesn't have bad outings. It's as simple as that. If you get 13 points out of Travis Kelce, I'm sorry, that is not the elite player that you were looking for. So it might consider a quality start, but that's not where you drafted him in the first round. Remember, he is a first-round draft pick. George Kittle is not. So
we're not talking about redraft. Yes, we're talking about dynasty.
The point being,
he's already on his team.
It doesn't matter. You still use draft capital to draft that player. In a dynasty league, when you're talking about getting assets, when you're talking about getting returning assets, you have to evaluate the return that you're getting. So if Travis Kelce is here, which I admit he's here, and George Kittle is here, what is the value in between those two players? What does that value look like? So if you have George Kittle, Travis Kelce a little bit better, and Kadarius Toney potential upside, and a second-round pick potential upside, where does that substitute the second player in that deal that would come with Travis Kelce? That's the problem. That's where is the unknown. That's why I say roster construction is important, because if you're now starting Travis Kelce and say, I don't know, say you drafted and that's your choice. You're now your Kelce.
Whoa. Who did you draft? Hold on. Who did you draft?
No,
we didn't hear you.
You
broke up. You broke up right as you were like talking about who you would draft.
Jalen Tolbert. Say you drafted Jalen Tolbert, and he has to start for you. I'm just throwing out a name. So you have Kelce and Jalen Tolbert, or you take Kittle, Kadarius Toney, and whatever that second round pick is. Could be a Rashad White, could be a David Bell. That's your replacement value player. Now, so you have to be able to judge that based on your roster. It's close, and the thing is, and I'm not mad at you.
when you were wiping your face down and I told you to pick your face up, I was going to say, and we can wrap this up now and give not Tom the answer that he's looking for. I'd do the trade. AJ would do the trade. Aaron would do the trade. We are finalizing that, and we would complete that trade because I think, and with what we're talking about here, I'm not a big Kadarius Toney fan. Like I don't know. I'm more on the side that I don't know if I don't think he's going to be able to be that fantasy starter you're going to be able to use. But you brought up, so to me, this is George Kittle and that second round pick for Travis Kelce now, and that second round pick being able to turn into someone you might like. It's funny you brought up Jalen Tolbert or Kadarius Toney. I think I would rather Jalen Tolbert over Kadarius Toney. But that's just because of what I like as scouting from Jalen Tolbert over Kadarius Toney. We don't know what he's gonna. We don't know. We talked
about you playing with your emotion, like
correct.
And that what you're saying when you say you don't like Kadarius Toney, that's your emotion. Because when Kadarius Toney was a focal point of an offense last year, we saw what he was capable of. Does that mean he's going to be? Does that mean he's going to stay healthy? No. The upside is what we're looking at, and in Dynasty, I'm sorry, that's a lot of the time what we're basing it on because we want guys for 4 to 5 to 6 years. And I just don't think Travis Kelce has that much left in him. So for this particular offer, and you're probably only talking about 2 guys that I would do this for. Mark Andrews, maybe Kyle Pitts. Mark Andrews, George Kittle, and maybe Kyle Pitts are the only 3 guys in a deal like this that I would even consider that for.
Okay, fair enough. All right, well, there you go. This trade right here, George Kittle, Kadarius Toney, and a second-round pick to not Tom for Travis Kelce. We here at the Sack City Podcast say, do the trade. All right, hopefully you enjoyed that nice little trade talk segment. We are now going to move on. AJ, let's pay some bills here before Aaron snaps back on our Monday trade or our Monday ADP talk. Tell them where they can follow us at.
Why he always focused about the past? Why we can't go to the future? Why we can't just move on, talk about what we're talking about today? That's what we do here at Sack City Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Excuse me. Go ahead and hit those follows, those shares, those likes, those loves. We appreciate it when you follow the best NFL content on the interwebs. So ladies and gentlemen, do it now. And if you don't do it now, do it right now. Head on over to Sack City Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Sack City Pod. Population. One more. Hey.
Oh. Even with a frog in your throat, that was still one of your best social reads of all time. I had so much fun riding that little wave of a social read of that. Bravo.
I got to make up for all the crap that Dylan put on the socials last week.
Dylan has been putting in some garbage social reads, but you are here to save the day, and I appreciate that. All right, Aaron, now is your time before we're going to get into our best ADP value talk in just a few moments, but here is your chance. Clap back. Oh, he's probably got notes. That's what he's looking at right now. He's probably got notes listed down.
I'm looking at you.
He probably logged our episode. Did you log our episode of what
Listen,
points you're I
am watching my son's game on Game Changer.
One of the best commentary in the world.
I'm listening to you. I don't need notes to clap back at what these people were talking about. Okay.
These people.
You people. And I'm talking about you, Mr. AJ. I am gonna tell Dylan that I'm sorry that he's not here because I did want to bring up his guys mostly. It's not even about really AJ's players, but I did have some issues with some of Dylan's guys. The first one was Josh Jacobs. I felt like you guys were all over the place with Josh Jacobs. Like, I felt like you guys were almost all over the place that you didn't know what you wanted to do with Josh Jacobs. It was like, well, he's good, but there's a backfield by committee. Can we stop? And I say that's my phrase. Can we stop? We have got to stop saying every backfield has an abundance of talent. You guys were throwing out names like Zamir White, Kenyon Drake, who was the other? Jalen Rashad. Jalen Rashad, I think Dylan said.
Dylan brought up Jalen Rashad.
Have to stop. These running backs that we just say just because they play behind a guy and they may have seen a little bit of playing time doesn't mean that they're a threat to take over the role of the high draft pick in Josh Jacobs, the bell cow in Josh Jacobs. Like, we got to stop doing that. I think Brandon Bolden was mentioned. As the passing down back. Just stop. We got to stop. Josh Jacobs will do what Josh Jacobs always does. Am I saying he's a top 5-7 running back? No. But last year he finished in PPR leagues 11th. The year before that, 8th. So what is wrong with drafting Josh Jacobs in the 3rd, 4th round as an RB2 on your team? That's where his ADP is. So why are we saying that we should stay away from a guy that's returning that value?
So I'm pretty sure I agreed with what you just said about taking him and he'd still be okay. I will say that blunder of Brandon Bolden is just more about the fact that Josh McDaniels brought him over because he trusted him, and Dylan was spewing BS out of his mouth, and it gets you all cloudy up here. You don't think straight. And so passing, catching back, whatever, take that off. But Brandon Bolden, I expect to have some usage. Kenyon Drake is relevant in that offense, though. They used him last year. They used him before. Or you saw his usage being the reason they brought them over from Arizona, because he can split those goal line carries. The fact of the matter is, when Josh Jacobs is on the field, he's great, but he also gets injured, and you need a guy like Kenyon Drake who's still a bigger body and can bruise down near the goal line. So I don't know why Jalen Rashad was ever brought up. But I won't let you just say Kenyon Drake ain't nothing. I think you missed the point of what we were saying by running back by committee. It wasn't saying that Kenyon Drake's going to take over Josh Jacobs. He's going to be there. It's just the fact that he's going to take away carries at some point in time.
But he did that last year.
I didn't think it was going to be a huge amount. Exactly. That's why I said I think it was a
Let me hold on. Let me slide in here. Let me ask you this question, Aaron. Let me ask you this question because I brought it up on Monday's show. Last year was under a different system. A different system here. And we've seen Kenyon Drake be a starting running back in the NFL. Josh McDaniels is coming from a system in New England where we saw multiple running backs be used with Ramondre Stevenson, Damian Harris, Rex Burkhead many of times back in those days. Josh McDaniels in the past has used multiple running backs. So what makes you so confident that it is just going to be, maybe I shouldn't say just going to be Josh Jacobs. Obviously it's going to be, you're going to see some of a running back of some sort, but they didn't,
that's every team. There's teams use other running backs. This is the biggest misconception is, oh my God, he has to be a bell cow. Josh Jacobs had 240 carries last year.
Said that too.
The same amount of carries that Ezekiel Elliott had, who we said was giving away carries to Tony Pollard. So if he has 240 carries, is he not capable of putting up the same numbers? We talk about Kenyon Drake stealing touches from him. Kenyon Drake had 2 touchdowns last year in 13 games. Josh Jacobs had 11. I don't think it's a huge threat to Josh Jacobs. Kenyon Drake's coming back from a severe ankle injury. We don't even know if he's going to be ready to start the season. There's optimism that he is, but we're not even sure how he's going to come back from that. And then you have a bunch of just guys behind Josh Jacobs. Vinny, you mentioned the contract year. That's even more huge. The fact that they didn't sign him, to me, tells me they can do whatever they want with him. A guy who has been banged up. But one thing he's been banged up, he continues to play. He rarely sits out games. He tries to tough it out. I think Josh Jacobs at his ADP right now is exactly where he should be going. It's not sexy. Are you going to have question marks because he doesn't care about fantasy football and he may not tell you that he's banged up and then he plays 5 snaps? Perhaps. But that's not a reason for me to just say, no, I'm not going to pick him. We got to stop looking at players' games played and missing games and saying, I can't pick him in fantasy football, because then you're not going to be attached to anyone. Football players are going to miss time now. We did say at the beginning of that show that we are not by any means saying don't draft. Dylan might have said that because Dylan,
lots of times.
This young generation just says absurd things. But we said before the show started that we by no means are saying don't draft these players at all, because there's value to every player has a value pick, just maybe more or less what their ADP is. And now his ADP
is 4th round.
Well, while you were talking,
I feel like that's where he was going last year, wasn't it?
This is the research that I did not do to rebuttal Dylan's point, but to tie into the Josh McDaniels slander of saying he uses multiple running backs, because we've seen him go with Ramondre Stevenson, Damian Harris, all this kind of stuff. Maybe that's more of Bill Belichick with the whole punishment treatment and not on a Josh McDaniels thing, because last year, Damian Harris had 202 carries. The year before, 2 years prior to that, it was Sony Michel with 247 carries.
It's about talent. The Patriots have never had talented enough guys to give them 250 carries. That's the problem.
So maybe we still see the Josh Jacobs, and that pick may be the right pick. Is there any other?
I think
we'll
I don't
move aside from Josh Jacobs.
I don't want to get into all of them, but I did want to talk a little bit about the DK Metcalf conversation, because I'll skip the Elijah Mitchell, and you guys did not mention Debo and whether he's going to get carries or not. I thought that was interesting. But the DK Metcalf conversation, again, I just didn't understand. You guys played a name game. You brought up Hunter Renfrow and Terry McLaurin and all these guys that you would have over DK Metcalf. And then you brought up the DK Metcalf had a bad year and all this stuff. And Dylan was talking about his 2-point games and his 4-point games. He had as many single-digit games as Hunter Renfrow. The problem was Hunter Renfrow also had a lot of 6 10-point games. DK Metcalf didn't have 6 10-point games. He was in single digits a few times, but then when he went over double digits, it's 16, it's 20, it's 27. The argument against DK Metcalf, regardless of who the quarterback is mind-boggling to me, and I hope he continues to fall down draft boards, because one thing that people fail to realize is with a quarterback like Drew Lock, who's inaccurate down the field, or Geno Smith, who maybe can't get the ball down the field as much, that's going to impact Tyler Lockett. That's not going to impact DK. DK is the big physical receiver that you can throw across the middle of the field. You can get him when it's press coverage and maybe he doesn't get separation and you're a quarterback and you throw it to him. Tyler Lockett is the one that needs those big splash plays in order really to be effective. And the connection between him and Russell Wilson was undeniable. I don't know if Tyler Lockett produces at any level without Russell Wilson this year, which is why I think his stock has dropped significantly, because it's going to be something different when Drew Lock's throwing you that deep ball versus that Russell Wilson, 50 yards in the air and it lands right, that kind of stuff. I like DK. I think his floor is a low-end wide receiver too. That's a floor, and that's been Terry McLaurin's best season. Why are we fading DK Metcalf?
So, now, if you remember, I looped both those guys in because I do think it's going to affect them differently. I definitely said the reason it wasn't so much conversation about Tyler Lockett is because Tyler Lockett's going as the wide receiver 47. It's pretty far down. And I even said I would still drop him a little bit. When you're talking about DK Metcalf at wide receiver 15, it was more for me a question mark of if he can do it, because he was heavily based on touchdowns, number one. And then number two, he needed a lot of his scoring came off of big plays, regardless of going across the middle and getting those chunk plays. A lot of his big days came off of the big plays coming from Russell Wilson. With Drew Lock, if they can find a way to kind of do what LAC did with Mike Williams last year and bring his ADOT down, bring it closer to the first down type of throws, then he may have that eat up yards type of season, get a bunch of receptions. But I don't think he's ever had more than 83 receptions in a season, which is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I need every receiver to have 100 receptions a year, because honestly with Drew Lock, I don't know if that's the case. But it's where he's being taken at wide receiver 15 that I would drop a little bit. And like you, I absolutely hope he keeps falling down, because there is a point where there's no way I'm not taking DK Metcalf. That's just a fact, because even if he doesn't do what I need him to do, somebody in every one of your leagues will take that trade because of that name.
Yeah, I think when you talk about DK and the touchdowns, that's a fair point. Seattle is not going to be a good team. They're going to be playing from behind. We look at these teams and sometimes we mix regular football with fantasy. I don't care if Seattle sucks. I don't care that Drew Lock sucks. There are plenty of receivers that produce when their quarterback sucks. I don't need him to be a top 5 guy. I'm not drafting him as that. But to say he's going to score 10 touchdowns over the course of the season because they're down 40-6 and he gets a bunch of garbage points, send it. I'll take it all day long.
It's a fair point.
DK Metcalf or Amari Cooper.
Close. Both, honestly, they're both wide receiver 2s right there in the middle. I have them both wide receiver 12, 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there. I would lean towards DK Metcalf because the uncertainty at the quarterback position in Cleveland to me is different. DK has another guy on the other side to take away some of the coverage, has Noah Fant. I think that offense is a little bit more sound if Locke or Geno Smith is the quarterback than if it's Jacoby Brissett or somebody else that we don't know.
Let me drop a round then, because DK Metcalf and Amari Cooper. DK Metcalf's going around 43, and Amari Cooper's going around 50. So that's really not that big of a difference. But so DK Metcalf or Brandon Cooks?
Ooh, that's tough. I like
because Brandon Cooks.
I still take
Brandon Cooks is
DK
going
Metcalf.
at 58.
I still take DK Metcalf.
Okay. DK Metcalf you've already buried the the Hunter Renfrow thing. DK Metcalf or I don't care which one. Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy. One of those wide receivers for
DK
Denver
Metcalf.
who's going to be okay.
I think there's too many guys in Denver. I think it's going to be spread around a little bit more. Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler's back, Cortland Sutton, plus the running back. So
Greg Dulcich.
I'm a big fan of DK Metcalf. I think DK every year is going to be consistent. I know people were upset with him, but that's because people were gauging him based on he should be a top 3 receiver in the NFL based upon his physical stature, and they were disappointed in him. But let's not forget, Russell Wilson didn't play great. A lot of that wasn't on DK. Like Russell Wilson did not have a great year last year. He was hurt and he didn't play very well. And DK was still able to produce high wide receiver 2 value.
If you end up with DK Metcalf as your wide receiver 1, are you okay with that? That means you go maybe 2 running backs and a tight end in the first 3 rounds.
Probably not. No, because I'm taking a wide receiver in the first 3 rounds. So I'm probably looking at DK Metcalf in the 3rd. Like, you know what I mean? Like if he's there 3rd, 4th round, like I'll look at him for sure. I wouldn't be afraid to take him.
Okay. Oh, gotcha.
That one made me
I don't remember Dylan actually saying he would take. Did he say he'd take?
He said he would not. No, he just said he wouldn't take any Seahawks receiver at all.
Okay, so he didn't actually say.
His conversation it was like if Russell Wilson's the quarterback, it was something like
his
that.
conversation
because it made us stop in our tracks.
No, his thing is inconsistency, and what was so frustrating about that conversation was every time somebody brings up, well, the 2-point games and the 4-point games. Name me a player in the NFL that doesn't have those on their schedule. DK did it 4 times last year where he was in single digits. I can go look at those top receivers, and I guarantee they have the same thing on there. And we're not drafting him as a top guy. We're drafting him in the 4th round. We have to stop. We got to stop doing that because a guy gets hurt in week 15 when you needed him the most, and he failed to give it to you, but he carried you all year long. Like, to me, that's just dumb. It's fantasy football.
DK Metcalf had more of a consistent year than Tyreek Hill last year of the Kansas City Chiefs. Just want to throw that one out there.
Mike Evans, this was the conversation about Mike Evans for years. But yet at the end of the season, he's wide receiver 8. He's got 1,000 yards. He's got 10 touchdowns. You have to, sometimes you just have to look at the entire season. If you play week to week to week every time, you're going to hate players and you'll draft nobody on your team like Dylan Kearns.
And then finish last.
And then finish dead last.
Let's get into our ADP talk here. Enough ripping on Monday's show. If you missed Monday's show, please go check it out now on all podcasting platforms. And if you want to watch it back on YouTube, it is there, or it'll be clipped for you. But however you want to watch it, or listen to it, or view it, it's going to be there for you at the Sac City Pod on all podcasting platforms and YouTube. All right, let's get into our ADP values here, and let me take a look and see what you gentlemen have picked and see where I want to start off here first. AJ, we'll start off with you. Who is one player that, yes, sir, your beautiful face. Who is one player that you are targeting at their as the best ADP value?
So I think you're really gonna like this, Vinny, so to speak. It's your guy, Baltimore Ravens wide receiver Rashad Bateman. Last season we talked a lot about Rashad Bateman. You were head over heels for Rashad Bateman. You were so excited for Rashad Bateman. We know he has a lot of talent, and we were expecting to see it. Came on, I want to say he played, I think, 12, 13 games last season. And now Hollywood Brown is gone. And now Rashad Bateman steps into the number 1 wide receiver position. So to me, one, that tells me that, hey, the Baltimore Ravens trust his talent to be a number 1 receiver. But more importantly, the amount of targets that have just been released to be split basically between him and Mark Andrews are astronomical. So you think about Marquise Brown. In 2020, he had 100 targets. 2021, he had 146 targets. Now, everyone's saying now that he's gone, Mark Andrews is going to get the guy. Last year, Mark Andrews obviously had the targets, 153. But the year before that, he only had 88 targets. And you can't, despite what you all want to believe, you can't just throw to Mark Andrews. Eventually, teams will figure that out. You have to get some plays down the field. And Rashad Bateman's that high catch point type of guy. So having the targets that are split up, we're talking about 100 targets that he can add to his 40 or 68 targets of last season. So Rashad Bateman going wide receiver 39, pick 92. We're talking 8th round. If he's still there, I think that's a great pick. Plus, you're going to be pairing him probably with a very top-notch receiver from the first 3 rounds. You're in a very solid spot.
Yeah, I love that. You obviously are well aware of my love for that pick, but I also want to point out the fact that you brought up the loss of Hollywood Brown in that offense and the fact that they didn't really bring in anyone to replace him. They seem like they have that trust in Rashad Bateman. We also should look at Hollywood Brown's stats, obviously, and fantasy production at the beginning of last season and throughout last season with Lamar Jackson as his number 1 wide receiver. Now, the playing styles of Rashad Bateman versus the Hollywood Brown, a little bit different. Maybe it doesn't translate or doesn't transition perfectly, but Hollywood Brown was a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 last season with Lamar Jackson. And I think Rashad Bateman could do just that. And you look at where he's being drafted at now, it's like Rashad Bateman or Brandon Ayuk or Rashad Bateman or Treylon Burks or Rashad Bateman or Elijah. I don't know if I want to go the Elijah Moore route, but he's in a spot where you can take him and be like, oh my God, this is a steal. I love that pick a lot. Aaron, do you have any clapbacks on that one, buddy?
No, I don't clap back on everything. I love the Rashad Bateman. I think a wide receiver 40 is honestly a disservice to where he should be. He is a talented player. And I think this ADP is more about the offense. It's just the style of Baltimore wants to play. They brought in a number of tight ends this offseason, Charlie Kohler, Isaiah Likely, that those guys are now there. I think they're going to go back to that 2 tight end, both going out. Nick Boyle's still there. And they're going to run the football. They're getting their running game back. They still got J.K. Dobbins coming back. Mike Davis is now there, just another body. And then they drafted Tyler Beatty. So I think that's what Baltimore wants to do offensively, but there's only one guy on the outside that we're really talking about. Maybe Devin Duvernay gets some big plays, but it's really going to be about Rashad Bateman. And I like Rashad. What's so funny?
More Dylan
Devin
talk.
Duvernay. Dylan put Devin Duvernay in the top 10 trios with
I remember that, but to Dylan's credit, Devin Duvernay's a really good player. No, Devin Duvernay's a really good player. This is not the first time he'll see action. He's listed as a starter right now. And if you watched Baltimore last year, he was on the field. He was in their offense. It's just Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews were there. So top 10
trio.
Vinny, nobody's siding with Dylan there. But to AJ's point, that's way in the past. You really got to let that
go. Any chance I can get to rip on Dylan, I'm going to take it. Aaron, what's your best value pick here to start us off?
My first one, I'll stay in Baltimore. It's Gus Edwards. And I know, Gus Edwards might go undrafted by many people. But Gus Edwards 2 seasons ago, almost 1,000, I don't say almost 1,000 yards, about almost 750 yards, had 6 touchdowns in a run-heavy, run-first offense that likes to use him around the goal line. Look, I'm not saying this guy is going to be in your starting lineup every week, but J.K. Dobbins, like Gus Edwards, is coming off a significant knee injury, and he's a guy that they like in that offense for whatever reason. I don't think he's the most talented player, but they like using him in goal line situations and short yardage situations. I just think this is a guy late round when you're looking at the running backs that are there or the players that are there at that value, and you're like, do I want to take Gus Edwards or do I want to take Damian Williams? I'm sorry, I'll take Gus Edwards because I know they're going to run the football. Do I want to take Gus Edwards or do I even want to take a Sony Michel, who's in a big running back by committee in Miami, not knowing if he's going to – I will take Gus Edwards there. I'm not a fan of James White this year. There's just guys in that area that I wouldn't rather have than Gus Edwards. So late round pick, take a chance.
Yeah. I mean, 2 seasons ago when Gus Edwards played 16 games, he was second on the team in terms of touches, right behind Lamar Jackson, and 153 total touches. And then right behind him was J.K. Dobbins at 152 in his
They
first
run the ball.
year. They love to run the ball, and then when they're not running the ball, don't be surprised if Gus Edwards is catching it out of the backfield. What is your thoughts and the concerns of people that are like obviously you're getting Gus Edwards at a great value pick so deep in the draft, but what do you think about those people that are saying it's because there's a lot of hype around J.K. Dobbins this season,
as it should be.
There should be. So
and
what
I think his ADP reflects that.
Do you think that him being ranked as high and valued as high as he is takes away from what we have seen from Gus Edwards? Like, obviously, what I just brought up with the total touches, Gus Edwards, one of the leaders on this team in total touches, but now we're building up J.K. Dobbins even more and more. Does that bump Gus Edwards down a little bit?
No, because I have two factors. Number one, if we're talking redraft here, I would assume Baltimore understands both guys are coming off knee injuries. Both are probably not going to start the season with full workload, which means they're going to split time like they were doing before. Now, maybe as the season progresses, does J.K. Dobbins grab a stranglehold of that? Yeah, I expect J.K. Dobbins to be the lead back there. There's no denying that. But I'm probably not investing my draft pick in J.K. Dobbins because of the uncertainty around the injuries, which means I probably didn't get him. So I mean, I don't know what he's going right now. I want to say
Dobbins?
I want to say he's in the top 30 at least.
Yeah, Dobbins is going. Let me
for running backs.
Yeah.
So as a top 30 running back, I'm probably like, you know what? I don't trust he's going to get a full workload. Maybe I don't trust the knee. If I draft some other guys and then late in the draft I see Gus Edwards' name there, and I say, you know what? That's a good back to have in a run-first offense that maybe J.K. Dobbins is not healthy all season. Maybe he does struggle coming back from that injury, and maybe Gus Edwards gets the amount of work that we saw 2 seasons ago. So, again, this is more late round. We're trying to find guys that could stand out or have an opportunity to play, and I think Gus Edwards has a good chance of doing that just because of the style of offense in which Baltimore plays.
Yeah. I think, J.K. Dobbins is going as the RB21 in drafts, and then you look at Gus.
That's too high for me.
And Gus Edwards is going way down, right behind Khalil Herbert. He is the RB58. So yeah,
I would take Gus Edwards over Khalil Herbert any day of the week because know Gus Edwards is going to get some run when he's healthy.
Let's play this shit game. Gus Edwards or Sony Michel? We already said that. No. Gus Edwards or Marlon Mack?
It's Gus Edwards for me.
Gus Edwards or Tyler Algier, the running back for Atlanta?
This year, it's Gus Edwards for me, because Cordero Patterson's still there.
Last one here, Gus Edwards. Let me scroll up here. A lot of people, and maybe you think this as well, Gus Edwards or Cordero Patterson?
As sad as it sounds, Gus Edwards.
That's the answer I
think Cordero will start, and I think he'll have a good start to the season. But AJ mentioned this the other day. I do think Tyler Algier is going to get some run, but that offense to me right now is kind of a mess. I don't know. I mean, we're still talking Marcus Mariota. So as a defense, I'm loading the box to stop Cordero Patterson and say, good luck, Drake London and Kyle Pitts, because you got that guy at quarterback. So I'm still unclear what it's going to look like in Atlanta. I know what I'm getting out of Gus Edwards.
Yep.
AJ's talking, and I can't even hear him.
Why are you on mute? What are you doing over there?
Just keep moving. Let's roll.
What, do you have a zoo going on over there? It's just chaos. It's just things bouncing off the walls, yelling.
I muted so long ago because there was some noise that was happening, and then I was captivated by the wonderful conversation you guys were having, and guess I never turned it off. It's Monday in my head apparently. So
were you captivated at all the shitty names I named alongside Gus Edwards?
I laughed so hard.
Good. And, good. I'm glad.
The part you missed was me saying Falcons are going to be fire. 9 wins this year.
Okay, let's move on.
Might even make it to the Super Bowl.
So I am going to go with my next value pick, and we talked about it before the show. Is like I picked 2 players. Well, I've locked it down to just one on this, and I was trying to choose between which Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver I think has the best value, and I think it's Marquez Valdes-Scantling going in the 12th round. I think he brings, obviously, do not quote me on, do not yell at me for saying he's going to be what Tyreek Hill was in this offense.
Are you kidding me? You're crazy.
The style of play of MVS, the speed game, fits perfectly with what Kansas City has wanted to do in this offense for so long. I think he comes in and has a very good year for the Kansas City Chiefs. And you look at where he is being drafted right now, it is behind WNBA star Sky Moore. It's behind guys like DJ Chark. It's behind guys like Kenny Galladay. It's behind guys like Jacoby Myers. I am taking MVS over all of those guys and possibly more. I'm not going to go down the list. But what he has the potential of being is the number one wide receiver on this offense. And if you are the number one, he has the potential. It's not counting Travis Kelce. It's not counting Travis Kelce, if that's what you're meaning, if that's what you're looking at me like that for. What's your deal over there?
MVS has no shot. No shot at being a clear number one in this offense. No shot. Zero chance at being the number one option in this offense.
I don't know if I'd say zero.
Zero chance.
Zero chance that he's the number one option.
Zero chance. Look, I like MVS like you do. I think maybe his ADP is his ADP. I'll just say this, and I don't really want to talk about MVS that much because I think that's a sleeper pick for a lot of people this year. I think MVS has the biggest issue is his ADP is reflective of what the issues are in Kansas City. There's too many guys. It's Juju, it's MVS, it's Kelce, it's Mecole Hardman, who people still forget about, like he's not going to play. It's Sky Moore, who they drafted, who obviously they like. That's what, 6 guys? 6 guys that we don't have a clue how they're going to be used, but yet we're all trying to pick one of them to say this is going to be the guy.
And that was the thing before the show, and to pull the curtain back with everybody here, I had Juju and MVS lined up back to back, side to side, like I was going to use 2 players here. But I chose MVS because he is a deeper value pick. But if I'm drafting, and I don't know how you guys feel about taking 2 wide receivers from the same team. I feel like MVS is so much farther down that I can take Juju where his value is at the 88th pick in the draft, going in round 7, and then scoop up MVS in round 12 and take my shot on either one of those Patrick Mahomes weapons. I just worry about the fact that, and Dylan brought this up on Monday, and this is probably the only fair point he had with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, was that you just don't know which one is going to have the game. And that doesn't scare me away completely of drafting somebody. But if I'm getting MVS in round 12, I'm okay with taking that shot because it's a 12th round pick and the guys going around him. I'd much rather take the shot with a Patrick Mahomes weapon than someone else.
Go ahead, AJ. I'll let you go. And
then I was on your side and everything, and then you said he'd be the number one, and then I lost all my thought process. But I like the idea. I mean, in the 12th round, he was
going to be the number one. I said he has a potential of being number one, and if I can draft that in the 12th round, gladly.
Can I ask you, what's that based on? What is that based on? From what you've seen him as a player, what tells you MVS has the potential to be the number one? Like, what proof or evidence, or what are you basing that on?
Speed guy, high investment in signing him. They obviously invested highly in him in signing him. So, and he fits the same system that his style of play fits the Kansas City Chiefs style of that fast paced gunslinging.
We have 5 guys like that.
They do, but I'm just saying MVS they obviously wanted MVS.
Yeah.
They went out and invested highly in, not crazy highly, but and to me, I've said it on this show before. I think Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be the best a wide receiver 2 in this league and for fantasy this season. Fringe wide receiver 1. That's like my guy I'm locking down. But like I said, it's the potential in round 12 with MVS of the shot in the dark that he's the number 1 wide receiver for this Chiefs team with Patrick freaking Mahomes is why that I have him here as one of my best ADP value picks.
And I do believe that he's going to have a big role in this offense than a lot of people are thinking. I mean, I think I mentioned this when we were talking about Kansas City and the moves they made. He is the replacement for the things Tyreek Hill could do down the field. I'm faster than everybody. I'm behind the secondary. The ball's dropping in the basket because you just can't catch me. And they need that guy, that deep threat that take the top off. And it's Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. A lot of people talk about how similar their talents are. You're just getting a younger version. And we know how strong-armed that Pat Mahomes is. Just let Tyreek Hill tell it. You know what I'm saying? With it going in the 12th round, I mean, like you mentioned, the guys that are around there, you're talking about 2 more rounds. You're picking your defense and your kicker in 2 of those. So if I'm taking MVS with my next to last skill position round, let's do it. I'm all about that.
Yeah.
So I just wanted, the reason I wanted to go last, because I just want to say this. Fantasy Pros has MVS, I believe, wide receiver 60, Mecole Hardman, wide receiver 62. Very similar, close to each other. I'm taking Mecole Hardman over MVS all day in redraft. So already familiar with the offense, already has a rapport with Patrick Mahomes, has already seen the field, has the trust of Andy Reid. They like him, even though he's had his struggles. I am not as high on MVS in fantasy as I am in regular football. I think he brings a dynamic element to them as a football team. But the closest thing to what Tyreek Hill did for Kansas City is not MVS. It's Mecole Hardman. No, I know you did.
I just mean nothing.
I know you said that. I'm just saying in general, overall, his whole package of what Kansas City does, Mecole Hardman is the one that runs the jet sweeps and runs the bubble screens and gets in out of the break. I'm not saying he's Tyreek Hill, but he is actually the closest thing to Tyreek Hill that they have outside of maybe Sky Moore, which we haven't seen yet. That could change. But I don't mind it if you're making your choice MVS. Me personally, I would never draft 2 of those same players. I would just stay away from the entire wide receiving core. And if I wanted one of them, I'd trade for him during the season.
So you're not even on Juju?
Nope. The only person I would draft from Kansas City is Travis Kelce. And
he hasn't liked Juju for years. Before he was a part of the show, I remember him
Juju's
talking about
fine.
Juju.
I think that'll be great. Juju will be fine there. I think he'll get a lot of catches. I don't know how productive he'll be in the red zone. I don't know how productive he'll be in yardage-wise. He'll get a lot of catches, but the fact of the matter is I think they do spread it around. I think there's going to be a lot of guys involved. And the only one that I'm sure of, and this is how I draft, I want guys I'm sure of, Travis Kelce.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. AJ, let's finish. Let's finish this off. Let's go you and then Aaron real quick to end the show. Who is your last value pick?
Yeah, so this one might be met with a little pushback, so to speak. I'm going to go down south, keep it in the Florida, and we're going down to Miami, and I'm going with running back Chase Edmunds. Talented guy who we've all enjoyed with his time in Arizona. We were sad to see him get hurt last year and watch him lose basically his role to James Conner, who had a phenomenal season. But now he's down in Miami and with Mike McDaniel, who, as we all know, was the offensive coordinator for San Francisco, who was in charge of their running game. And while he was with San Francisco, that was one of the most run-heavy teams in the league. You go back to 2018, they haven't ranked lower than 15th in the run game as far as rush yards per game, San Francisco that being. So now you get Chase Edmonds, a guy who can run the ball, who can catch the ball, and going to be in honestly just a weapon-heavy offense. It's hard to say run-heavy when you think about Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and some of the pieces they have there, but you obviously know they're going to be using guys like Chase Edmonds. Right now, he's going as a running back 34 in the 8th round. I love that value. I think that he's going to have himself a really good season because other than him, you're thinking Raheem Mostert for the most part, and we know he's probably going to get hurt. Then there's a Sony Michel, and then there's a Myles Gaskin, but apparently they don't trust in Myles Gaskin. They brought all those running backs in to take over him and Salvon Ahmed. So I'm going to go with Chase Edmonds, and I'm happy with him in the 8th round if I can get him there.
The reason why I went to you next here and went this route and said it would be you, then Aaron, because my last pick would have been James Robinson, who is a pick or is about about 2 running backs in between him and Chase Edmonds. I would much rather James Robinson than Chase Edmonds because obviously those 2 guys are going very close to a 92nd and then 106 for James Robinson. They're not going that far off. I think I am. We talk about on Monday's show, like guys that we are avoiding, but if the right value came, I would take said player. Chase Edmonds is pushing that line for me. Like, obviously, if Chase Edmonds really falls, I would take him, but I wouldn't take Chase Edmonds within 3 or 4 rounds of where he's going, to be completely honest. Just because of I don't like that Miami. I do not like that backfield. I just have way too much discomfort, and I can't. And obviously, this is more of a bench spot, and you're hoping, right? You're where they're going. It's more of a bench spot, hoping that they produce.
I mean, Chase Edmonds is a guy that you will probably consider putting in your flex at that point from round 8 in most cases.
But
like, go ahead.
I was just gonna argue. You finish, and then I will rebuttal.
Well, I mean, your worry is you don't know which guy it's going to be, right? Obviously, there's some affinity with Raheem Mostert. He brought him over from San Francisco. He must know that he can fight the injury or whatever. Are you worried that Raheem Mostert is going to overtake Chase Edmonds? I don't think even if that becomes a situation, it's nowhere near to the point that Chase Edmonds is an afterthought. I think Sony Michel is just a guy that is going to spell in the red zone, even though really you don't need him to do that because, again, Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds have so much.
I don't know if I'd even say I'm worried about one overtaking the other. Like, I think that that's just how it's going to end up being, is just not necessarily one overtaking the other, but it being more of a split backfield than anything. And I know
say your line, Aaron.
We started the show. We have to stop about RBCs, but this is one of the RBCs that I really don't know if I want to.
Running back by committee is okay.
And
it's
okay. And the reason being here is because of the pick I had was James Robinson, who I know
is in a running back by committee.
It's just Travis Etienne.
So
it's just Travis Etienne.
Let me ask you this question. Do you really believe that in a football game, there's probably 25 to 30 handoffs, right?
Yep.
Maybe a little bit more. Maybe you get 35, whatever. You really believe that it's going to be 10 for Edmonds, 10 for Mostert, 10 for somebody else, 10, like that's not the way football works. The NFL does not work that way.
No, but what I can see is it being 14 for Edmonds and 9 for Mostert 1 week, and then the next week it's 14 for Mostert and 8 for Edmonds. I can see that.
With that thought process, let me give you my analysis based on what you just said, because I was waiting for you to say something like that. Where Chase Edmonds is being drafted, which is what we're talking about. ADP, AJ mentioned it, running back 34. You know where Chase Edmonds finished last year? Running back 34. You know how many carries he had last year? 116, which is nothing. That's averaging 10 carries a game, which based on your math, the way you just did, it would be about 116. The year before that, he was running back 25. You know how many carries he had? 97. He is one of the most efficient running backs in the NFL, despite his injury history, despite his lack of touches in an offense. He's clearly the number one back right now, at least on the depth chart. He has Sony Michel behind him. So, yes, he's on the depth chart. Yes. He's listed as number one.
No. That's not what that isn't what I asked. That is not what I'm asking. You said he's clearly the number. Like, is it that
that's
like
clear when they issue out a depth chart? When they issue out a depth chart, that's how they do it. But number one, you have to look at who got paid the most money. Who got paid? Who did they invest in? Chase Edmonds.
One of the first players signed.
Raheem Mostert came over on some little bootleg deal. Sony Michel came over on some little bootleg deal. Raheem Mostert has an injury history. He's listed third on the depth chart. They bring a guy like that over because that's a guy who's familiar with an offense that can say, hey, Chase Edmonds, this is what we're doing. That's a good veteran to have in your locker room. It doesn't mean he's going to get 5-7 carries a game. Chase Edmonds at his ADP is, to me, one of the steals of the draft. And I do not – this running back by committee stuff, just because you have 3 guys who were once guys we saw get carries, doesn't mean they're still talented enough to be guys to actually play in a football game.
Those are all very fair points, and I will stand back on my RBC thing, and maybe I'll boost Chase Edmonds up a little bit. But I stand by my point. If I'm staring down Chase Edmonds and James Robinson there, I'm taking James.
I think that's close. And I don't think there's anything wrong with taking James Robinson. But he's going to have the same issues. He's going to lose catches. He's going to lose all the passing down work.
But the thing is, I don't know if it is like, what is the ceiling of Chase Edmonds? What is his ceiling? RB1
in the 20s.
So James Robinson,
he's a running back 3.
James Robinson is a RB2 as his ceiling and almost as RB3 as a floor. When if he obviously his health is a big thing here.
No, usage matters. It's not his health; it's usage.
But what I'm
because
so what
he's never had a competition there ever.
Yeah, and you can't tell. For a fact
he's never competed with anybody for that starting spot.
It's been him.
It's been him since they let go of Fournette. So he's got all the touches.
Well, if you're saying that, he did have to compete before when it was with Fournette and then Rock Armstead. Like, obviously it wasn't a big competition.
Rock Armstead.
Fournette was let go because of money reasons. We all know this.
Obviously, it wasn't a big competition, but he still had to compete. You're not saying
everybody have to compete. No. What I'm saying is that he never had to split carries with anybody. Travis Etienne is going to touch the football. That's a fact.
And that's what I'm saying. I think, but I still think that James Robinson's floor is RB3, and you just said Chase Edmonds' ceiling is RB3.
Okay.
So like that's why I'm saying that I'd much rather.
But I'm saying that based on their situations. Like, I think there is no chance in hell that James Robinson really breaks the top 15 in running backs this year. I just don't. I think he can be good.
I agree.
His ADP of where he's going drafted, I think, is bogus. I think he should be around anywhere between running back 20 to 25, somewhere around there. But he's not going to have the years that he had last year and the year before that, because Travis Etienne is going to take that passing down work away from him. And the fact that Jacksonville doesn't score a lot in the red zone, at least they haven't, especially running the football, that's going to hurt him as well. Because if you're just talking about running the football, you're going to get a guy like Gus Edwards.
Is running back 34 and running back 25 close?
What do you mean close?
You just said, well, like before you were saying that this is much closer than like a James Robinson and
Chase Edmonds been running back 25. He was running back 25 2 years ago.
What I'm saying, but like what you just said, you just laid it out. You just laid it out. Running back, but what's James Robinson finished as?
But again, the situations aren't the same. James Robinson's situation is not what it was 2 years ago. Chase Edmonds, if I give you the argument of running back by committee, he's in the same exact situation he was in Arizona. So that upside I've seen in Arizona being only getting 97 carries was running back 25. So that's the upside I'm giving him. If you told me Chase Edmonds gets 240 carries this year, I would tell you he's going to be what James Robinson was last year or the year before that. Like, that's how I feel. This year is the first year we'll see James Robinson with actual competition to take carries away from him. And I'm sorry, he's going to lose all his passing down work to Travis Etienne.
I agree. Now, do you worry at all about, and this is a selfish question, and we'll go on to your last thing here. What are your thoughts on the way Doug Peterson and Press Taylor's the new offensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars? What do you think about that and James Robinson's? Because obviously, is it just the injury that's brought James Robinson down to where he is right now, or is it's trying to mix with Etienne?
It's the investment that Jacksonville made into Travis Etienne. When you make an investment like that in the first round, you have to use that guy. You paid him more money. That's the problem. It's not about the ADP has nothing to do with James Robinson. If you give him the football, he'll produce. The issue is Travis Etienne is going to make too much money that they have to allow him to touch the football. And he's a dynamic player, but so you're going to run into this situation where it's probably closer to a 50-50 split. And with that, there's only so much upside when it's 50-50 split.
Fair enough. All right. Well,
yeah, what he said.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't think there's an argument. I think Travis Etienne's talent level far exceeds the talent level of a Sony Michel, of a Raheem Mostert, of a Myles Gaskin. So those guys can get pushed aside and not have to worry about it. You're not going to push Travis Etienne aside.
I brought that a similar point up on Monday's show when we were discussing who was it? It was Elijah Mitchell and Breece Hall. Mitchell and Breece Hall conversation when Michael Carter versus all the running back. Yep. Don't even get into
it. I remember. I heard that. There was some stuff, but I'll let you slide.
Aaron, finish us off. Who's the last player on your ADP list that's got the best value?
I'll make it real quick. It's Gabe Davis from the Buffalo Bills. This is a guy who's leading the NFL in red zone targets over the past 2 seasons. He's only been playing like 50% of the snaps. And like a guy in that offense with Josh Allen, to me, he should not be outside of the top 30 in wide receivers. I think he's wide receiver 34 right now on Fantasy Pros. ESPN, maybe even wide receiver 31, I think is the highest I've seen him at. To me, he's a hands down, if you're starting 3 wide receivers, starter. If you're only starting 2, then he's a hands down, like first flex play. He is going to score a ton of touchdowns. No Cole Beasley, no Emmanuel Sanders. You got Stephon Diggs, Dawson Knox, and who else? I mean, we talk about Khalil Shakir. We talk about Jamison Crowder. we know Jamison Crowder has had injury issues in the past. There's only a matter of time before he's injured again. I do like him in that little slot role, but when it comes to the red zone, Gabe Davis is going to score his touchdowns. He's going to have the big plays, and I think that's going to be enough value to boost him into the top 30 wide receivers. He should be going in the top 30.
You chose Gus Edwards and Gabe Davis over bringing up Russell Gage, and I wouldn't have brought up MVS. I wouldn't have brought up MVS if I would.
I did that on purpose.
On my list.
I did that on purpose.
Of course you did. Of course you did. Of course you did.
Hey, to be continued.
To be
maybe I'll drop a TikTok about Russell Gage.
Ooh, hey, that's my number. That would be one of my number. I think that would be my number 1 value pick, right next to James.
Can I make an announcement?
James Robinson.
Can I make an announcement? Just for my special fans, mainly my best friend Vinny. Colorado has 3 goals in the first period. Just so you know.
Yeah, it happened right when I turned it on.
Against the all-ever Mikey Vasilevsky, because goaltending wins championships, and Colorado's blah, blah, blah.
Hey,
3 goals, first period, Colorado.
Time out.
Yep, go ahead. Tell me I'm right.
First of all, how dare you? How dare you? You're making me, the man who is still heartbroken after losing on Saturday, you're making the man defend Tampa. You're making me defend Tampa here.
Hey, when Tampa had a whole bunch of days off, they were rusty. I don't think Colorado's rusty.
Second of all here, let's travel back in time. The Rangers shit pumped Tampa in game 1.
The Rangers ain't Colorado, buddy. You ain't winning this one. The Rangers are not Colorado.
Darcy Kuemper is not Igor Shesterkin.
And guess where Igor Shesterkin's at?
Hey, he's about to.
Yeah, where is Darcy Kuemper at?
Trophy because he's the best goalie in the NHL.
Where's Darcy Kuemper at in the Stanley Cup Finals? And guess what? He has a 3-1 lead in the first period.
Did you see the goal that he gave up? I'm just saying.
His team.
Oh, hey, he can give up 9 goals. Guess what? If they score 10, it doesn't matter.
There's no chance. There is no chance on God's beautiful green earth.
I'm sorry
that they score any more than.
See, I am never
6
worried.
is the max.
Yeah,
I am never worried.
See,
I am never worried about the Tampa Bay Lightning in game 1.
Well, that's because you don't know anything about hockey. But I digress.
I'm never worried about anybody in game 1 and blah, 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 blah. I'm tired of hearing it. The best team in hockey all year has been the Colorado Avalanche. Stop downplaying how good they are just because
who's downplaying it?
Goalie.
Ain't nobody down.
This is more for Vinny. This is more for Vinny. Because he's been talking all this shit about their goaltending all year, and yet they just keep winning and winning and winning. It doesn't matter. If they win, who cares who's goaltending? I could be in there. My black ass can be in there swatting away pucks. It doesn't matter.
I'm just really glad that this is live on the show right now because he did the same shit for the Rangers.
Oh my God.
And now the Rangers are golfing.
The Rangers are not the Avalanche.
I'm glad we have this now documented. So when the Lightning are hoisting the Stanley Cup at the end of the series, that your dumbass can come out here.
I told you I would bow down to you and call you the hockey king, but I'm gonna get my respect. I am gonna get my respect. You are gonna bow down to the Messiah.
No one's disrespecting you. It's
you disrespected me all season long. All season long. Every time I bring up the Avalanche.
It's just ridiculous that you guys are having this conversation like my team's not the one playing, but
man, cool. You don't know who your team is, man.
Yeah, I have to get the fuck out of here.
From Atlanta, but live in Tampa, but you go to games where you got Florida State, the Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Hawks, and then magically the Tampa Bay Lightning. Get the hell out of here.
Oh, wait, he frozen. I sent him to Frozen Land.
I'm trying to come back in. Hold the hell on. Ain't no question about my damn hockey team. I've been a Tampa Bay Lightning fan all my damn
since they won that first Stanley Cup. I've been a Tampa Bay Lightning fan since that first day they won that Stanley Cup.
At least I'm real about it. Like, I will admit, Colorado ain't my team, but I've been riding them all year long.
Oh, yeah.
Wait,
I'm being real about it too.
Wait, what?
Don't be mad
No,
because they're doing what they do.
I thought Colorado was your team.
I adopted Colorado when I got back into hockey because Nathan McKinnon is my guy. But I've watched the San Jose Sharks most of my life when I watch them, which is like in the playoffs, which they haven't been in. So I didn't watch them. But I adopted Colorado because I'm a huge Nathan McKinnon fan. But I'm defending them. But I'm not making no mistake. They're not my team. But my knowledge of hockey has grown. And the way they play and watching them just skate around that ice so smooth and bam in the back of the net and then skate it and bam in the back of the net. It's beautiful to watch. It's like Golden State playing basketball. It's beautiful to watch. So I don't want to hear anything about Igor Shesterkin or Andrei Vasilevsky because we don't care anymore. This is a new era of hockey. We put goals on the board. Nobody cares.
Well done. Well done.
Lightning in 7.
All right. We are going to end this show now. I probably won't even turn that game on tonight. That I won't watch watching the Stanley Cup Finals till game 2, just so that all of the history videos are not as shown as much, so I don't get my feelings hurt. But we'll be back again live at 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter for Fun and Games Friday. Aaron, are you on? Do you know if you're on the show Friday?
We'll talk about that after.
Got it.
Because Friday I'm off, but I'm on, but I'm off, but I got to make a drive. So
great.
We'll see.
Great. Either way, we're going to have a full, from start to finish, Fun and Games Friday with trivia, games galore. It's going to be, and I kind of need all 4 of us on because I have a 4-person game that I want to play that I've come up with that we're going to get into. It's going to be, it can't miss. Can't miss. Well, I mean, every Sac City episodes can't miss. And you're going to be there live with us Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. For my best friend, Aaron Mukes, and for your boy, AJ Johnson, I am me. We will see you Friday.
Peace out.
Holla.